Models of teaching, using the principles of training, in particular when focusing on specific skills or how to help students take those skills out into the world, becomes important to diagnose what are the prerequisite skills before the specific training comes in for new skills. 2, important to conduct a task analysis. What is required and what kind of skills are necessary. Important to set criteria for mastery. For a student in surgery, we want very clear criteria because life is at risk for demonstrating that mastery before that student moves on. The same argument could be used for other tasks in other areas. It's important for evaluation to move from just summative, end of semester, end of course assessment to ongoing feedback so students can correct, so teachers can see where the mistakes are being made. 5, feedback to students becomes important to make those correctives and develop those skills. Practice is an important part of this model. It cannot be just left to lecture notes, class notes. If one wants to see those skills put to use, then practice becomes a very important step along with ongoing feedback. In practice and in the classroom, there are opportunities for correctives, for remediation, for looking at those skills and how students are progressing and then making the adjustments, correctives for getting the skill mastery that you want. Extensions also become important. Some students take to material very quickly, and so there are opportunities then for them to, for example, use more practice. Time becomes an issue. Some students will speed through content and develop skills quickly. Others will need to take more time to practice. Appropriate materials become important as well. What materials do you have available for students as they're developing skills in your content area? And then student success becomes important. There has to be enough feedback so that student morale and motivation are supported, and success breeds success. And students having success will then eventually be much more likely to master specific skills. Training principles, questions to ponder. When is training essential for learning in your subject area? What kinds of training are needed? If you think about the lesson on cooperative learning and peer tutoring, if you want to use small groups, there may be real value in setting up a training program for the pro-social skills you want, for the mediation, negotiation skills, for students to make those group projects really meaningful. What kinds of training are possible in your subject area? What resources are necessary? What data could you collect to assess the effectiveness of the training you use? When students go out into the world, how could you assess their skill level? For example, if you decide to use small cooperative group work, what training would make the groups more successful? The pro-social skills of listening, consensus, negotiation. Here's an example of a state standard where training and transfer of skills is relevant. This comes from the Colorado State Social Studies Standards that guide students in developing the knowledge and skills to make sound judgments. So that knowledge is not just left in the classroom, but to make sound judgments, to understand historical, contemporary experiences and events, to analyze interpersonal and global tensions, and actively participate in the complex world in which they live. That's exciting, it's idealistic, but it does say clearly that the skills and knowledge students develop in class must be somehow taken out into the world and practiced. Questions to consider. How can you use a deeper understanding of training in your own classes? What's the value of a focus on training for student learning?